The silence in the room is a weapon. It's dense, heavy, and aimed directly between your eyes. Across the sterile white table, the Starfleet psychological evaluator hasn't blinked in what feels like a week. They aren't asking you about warp field mechanics or stellar cartography. They just asked you why you cried at your 8th birthday party. You're not trying to become a hero. You're in the middle of the most invasive, emotionally draining job interview in the history of the galaxy, and you're starting to suspect the utopian future has a very dark sense of humor. Forget the heroic recruitment posters showing brave officers gazing at nebulae. Forget the captain's speeches about a journey of discovery. Your journey into Starfleet doesn't start with a bang. It starts with paperwork, mountains of it. Pads full of forms that demand to know everything about you, from your genetic markers for male pattern baldness to a detailed essay on your relationship with your parents. This isn't a simple application. It's a deep tissue audit of your soul, conducted by a cosmic HR department with zero chill. They want to know your greatest fears, your political leanings, your childhood crushes, and a detailed list of every time you failed at something. All of it goes into a file. A permanent record that will follow you forever, ready to be pulled up by any future commanding officer who wants to know why you're not a team player. And if, by some miracle, your perfectly curated life story is deemed acceptable, congratulations. You've won the grand prize. A 4-year stay at the most prestigious pressure cooker in the quadrant, Starfleet Academy. You imagined it would be a place of wonder, of learning alongside the best and brightest. The reality is that you are now a very small, very stupid fish in an ocean of sharks with eidetic memories. The Vulcan in your astrophysics class doesn't study. He simply downloads the information and then spends the rest of the lecture calculating the precise statistical probability of your academic failure. The Andorian across the hall can climb a rock wall in 0G while simultaneously reciting security protocols, and the Betazoid in your ethics seminar? Well, she knows you're faking your confidence. She can feel the cold sweat of your imposter syndrome from across the room. Every class is a brutal reminder of your own mediocrity. You're not boldly going. You're desperately treading water, hoping nobody notices you're about to drown in a sea of geniuses. But the real meat grinder isn't the classroom. It's the simulations. The Kobayashi Maru isn't some legendary one-off test. It's the philosophy of your entire education. Every week, you're put in a new no-win scenario. One day, you have to choose which half of your crew dies to a plasma fire. The next, you have to negotiate a treaty where the only two outcomes are galactic war or cultural contamination. There are no right answers. The test isn't to see if you can win. It's to watch how you lose, to see how you crack. Every hesitation, every panicked choice, every moral compromise is logged, analyzed, and added to that permanent file. They're not building you up. They're finding your breaking points and cataloging them for future reference. Somehow, you survive. You pass your exams, you endure the psych evals, you haven't been drummed out for a nervous breakdown. You stand there at graduation, your chest swelling with a flicker of pride as they hand you your uniform and your first assignment, the USS Enterprise, the flagship, a dream come true. But as you look at your uniform, the pride curdles in your stomach. The fabric over your chest and shoulders is a deep, vibrant crimson, and the orientation pad they gave you has a curiously thick chapter titled Next of Kin Notification Protocols. You realize you weren't selected for your unique potential. You were selected because you fit a very specific, very replaceable profile. But hey, you're in Starfleet now. You're on the most famous ship in the fleet. What could possibly go wrong? Well, for starters, there's the color of your shirt. Ensign, you're with me. The captain's voice cuts through the bridge hum. 3 words that are supposed to be an honor, a chance to prove yourself. But as you look at his pristine gold uniform and the science officer's cool blue, a wave of cold nausea washes over you. You glance down at your own chest. Red, bright, cheerful, look-at-me red. Congratulations! You've just won the cosmic lottery you never, ever wanted to enter. You're on the away team. Your official job description for the next hour is human-shaped bullseye. You spent weeks at the academy on phaser training. You can hit a stationary target from 50 meters with your eyes closed. You know security protocols, hand-to-hand combat maneuvers, and the proper way to set up a containment field. Too bad none of that matters. The planets you visit aren't populated by angry humanoids who stand still and wait for you to aim. They're home to silicon-based life forms that phase through solid matter, psychic energy clouds that feed on anxiety, and plants that shoot neurotoxin-laced thorns at the first sign of movement. Your standard-issue phaser might as well be a water pistol. Your training is a joke, a flimsy security blanket designed to give you a sliver of confidence before you're vaporized by a creature that defies every law of physics you ever learned. The senior officers know this. They're not bringing you along for your tactical genius. They're bringing you along for your health bar. As the transporter beam dissipates, the air on the alien world hits you. It's thick, smelling of ozone and something like rotting fruit. The gravity is 1.2 times Earth standard, and every step feels like you're wading through mud. The sky is a sickening shade of purple. The captain and the science officer immediately start scanning, talking in hushed, important tones about energy readings and atmospheric composition. Your job? Stand there. Be visible. You are the designated first point of contact for anything hostile. You are a biological tripwire. Your primary function is to scream, giving the important people a precious 1.5 seconds to raise their shields or dive for cover. Every snapping twig, every gust of wind, every shadow that flickers at the edge of your vision sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through your system. You are a tightly wound spring of pure terror, waiting for the inevitable moment when something decides you look delicious. And then it happens. It's never a dramatic, drawn-out battle. It's sudden, chaotic, and deeply impersonal. A shimmering distortion in the air, a high-pitched shriek from the canopy above, a vine that uncoils from the ground with impossible speed. Your phaser fires a uselessly wide beam into nothing. The captain is shouting orders. Evasive maneuvers, set phasers to stun. But the commands are for a threat he can see and understand. You're already entangled, or being dissolved, or simply ceasing to exist in a flash of light. Your last thought isn't of heroism or sacrifice for the Federation. It's a flash of pure, unadulterated confusion and betrayal. This is it? This is the grand adventure? Your life ends not as a hero, but as a data point. Unidentified energy weapon, the science officer will note in his log. Hostile indigenous life form, the captain will report. Casualty, 1. That's you. But let's say you get lucky. Let's say the monster decides to eat the other red shirt today. You get beamed back to the ship, heart pounding, uniform slick with cold sweat. You survived. But don't for a second think you're safe now that you're back on the Enterprise. The technology designed to make your life a futuristic paradise has its own unique ways of making it a living hell. You walk into the mess hall, your stomach rumbling after a double shift spent recalibrating plasma conduits. You're dreaming of a juicy steak, a loaded baked potato, maybe even a slice of decadent chocolate cake. You step up to the food replicator, the pinnacle of Federation convenience, and state your desire. Computer, steak, medium rare, baked potato, sour cream, and chives. A swirl of light, a gentle hum, and a tray materializes. You take your first bite. And the dream dies. The texture is wrong. Spongy, uniform with a faint, plasticky aftertaste. The potato is a flavorless paste. The sour cream has the chemical tang of a cleaning solvent. This isn't food. It's an approximation of food, a memory of a meal reassembled from a sterile protein slurry and flavored with artificial molecules. Welcome to the culinary future. Everything you want, with none of the satisfaction. Every meal is a subtle, soul-crushing reminder that you are thousands of light years from a real kitchen. Enjoy your nutrient paste. But the replicator is just an appetizer for technological misery. The main course is the transporter. On the surface, it's a miracle. No more long shuttle rides, just a magical beam of light that takes you from ship to shore in seconds. But have you ever actually thought about what it's doing? It's scanning every single molecule in your body, destroying you in one location, and then reassembling a perfect copy of you somewhere else from raw energy. The you that arrives on the planet is not the you that left the ship. The original you is gone, obliterated. You are a clone, a perfect replica with all the memories of a person who ceased to exist a few seconds ago. Sweet dreams. Every time you step on that pad, you are playing quantum roulette. You just have to trust that the machine, which was probably repaired last week by a sleep-deprived ensign on their third straight shift, will get all 7 octillion of your atoms back in the right order. You hear the horror stories whispered in the corridors, the pattern degradation incidents, the guy who rematerialized inside out, the away team that got fused with a chunk of solid rock, the infamous time 2 crew members were merged into one screaming, tormented being. Every time the transporter chief says energize, you squeeze your eyes shut and pray you don't arrive on the other side with your spleen on the outside, or worse, with 2 heads and a sudden craving for flies. Think of it less as travel and more as a high-tech act of faith in a deeply fallible machine. And where do you go to escape this technological anxiety? The holodeck, of course. The ultimate recreational tool. You can be anywhere, do anything. Climb Mount Everest, solve a 1940s noir mystery, or just relax on a holographic beach. At least that's the sales pitch. The reality is that the holodeck is the most dangerous room on the ship. It's a reality-bending supercomputer with safety protocols that have a tendency to disengage. One minute you're having a pleasant chat with a holographic Sigmund Freud, the next the safeties are off, he's developed sentience, and he's chasing you down the corridor with a very real scalpel, screaming about your unresolved Oedipal complex. Every fantasy program is one power surge away from becoming a death trap. That charming gangster in your Dixon Hill adventure, his bullets are now solid matter. The beautiful ski slope you're on, the snow is now real, and an avalanche is on its way. The holodeck isn't an escape. It's a workplace accident waiting to happen, a glitchy beta test where you are the crash test dummy. The ship's technology isn't there to serve you. It's a constant, low-grade source of dread. The food is fake, the travel is an existential crisis, and the entertainment is trying to kill you. But even if you manage to avoid being eaten by a hologram, you can't escape the most profound horror of all. The crushing, mind-numbing boredom of your actual job. Your alarm chirps, a synthesized, emotionless sound that has become the soundtrack to your existence. You swing your legs out of your bunk and your feet hit the cold metallic deck. For a moment, you forget where you are. Is it morning? Night? It doesn't matter. There is no sun here. There is only the ceaseless, low-frequency hum of the ship's life support systems and the sterile, recycled air that always carries a faint, metallic tang of ozone and regret. This isn't a grand vessel of exploration. This is your office, your home, and your prison, a hermetically sealed tin can hurtling through an infinite black void. Welcome to another glorious day in Starfleet. Forget the spacious, sunlit quarters you see the senior officers enjoying. Your living space is a triumph of brutalist efficiency. You share a cabin the size of a modern-day walk-in closet with another ensign who snores like a malfunctioning warp core. There are no windows. Your only view of the outside world is a low-resolution screen that can be programmed to show a star field, a forest, or a beach, a pathetic digital mockery of the real thing. Privacy is a forgotten luxury. Every conversation is overheard. Every nervous habit is noted by your roommate. The communal sonic showers have a perpetual 2-person queue, and someone is always leaving their used uniform bits in the personal effects reclamation unit. It's like living in the universe's most technologically advanced, yet socially awkward, college dorm. Your job, the one you trained 4 years for, is a masterclass in tedium. You're not deciphering ancient alien languages or negotiating peace treaties. You are a glorified cosmic janitor. Your shift consists of running diagnostics on systems you barely understand. You stare at a console for 8 hours, watching streams of data flow by, waiting for a single amber light to flash. Ensign, report to Jeffries Tube 38. Congratulations. You get to spend the next 4 hours contorted into a space designed for a caffeinated ferret, recalibrating a secondary power coupling that's been acting up. The work is either mind-numbingly boring or terrifyingly critical, with no middle ground, and it never, ever ends. The ship is a fragile, impossibly complex machine that is constantly trying to break down, and you are one of the nameless, faceless mechanics whose only job is to slap high-tech duct tape on it before it falls apart. The social life you imagined, intellectual debates intend forward, camaraderie forged in the crucible of space, is a fantasy. Your social circle is limited to the same 1,000 people, day in and day out. Cliques form with the speed and intensity of a particle collision. Grudges over stolen replicator rations or perceived slights in the corridor fester for months. Every interaction is colored by rank. You can't just have a casual chat with a lieutenant. You have to be mindful of protocol, of seniority, of the invisible wall between you. The only real bonding happens in hushed tones, complaining about the same things, the terrible replicated coffee, the latest baffling order from the bridge, the soul-crushing sameness of it all. You are surrounded by people, yet you have never felt more alone. The vast, empty void outside the ship is nothing compared to the void inside you, carved out by sheer, relentless monotony. This isn't an adventure. It's a job. It's the ultimate remote work gig, except your boss can order you to your death and your office is a potential tomb. You thought you were signing up to explore strange new worlds. In reality, you signed up for a life of routine maintenance, social isolation, and an endless, unchanging routine. But every now and then, the routine is broken. An order comes down from the bridge. Prepare for first contact. And that's when the boredom is replaced by a far more visceral, immediate kind of terror. A red alert klaxon jolts you from your diagnostic-induced trance. The ship-wide comm crackles to life, the captain's voice calm, steady, and utterly terrifying. All hands, we have made first contact with a pre-warp civilization on planet Gamma Hestia 4. Away team will follow standard procedure. I repeat, standard procedure. A cold knot forms in your stomach. Standard procedure is Starfleet code for "Don't screw this up, or you'll be personally responsible for a planetary-scale disaster." You've just become an unwilling ambassador for the entire human race, and your primary mission isn't to communicate, it's to not get noticed. You're not on the main away team, of course. The captain, the first officer, and the ship's counselor get to do the glamorous, televised part where they meet the local leaders. You're on the science team, the B Squad, tasked with gathering unobtrusive atmospheric and geological data a few kilometers away from the settlement. This means you're dropped into the middle of an alien jungle with a tricorder and a stern warning: do not, under any circumstances, interact with the locals. This is the prime directive in action. It sounds noble and enlightened in a classroom on Earth. Down here, on the ground, it's a tactical nightmare. It's a rule that says you must quietly observe a world where literally everything might be trying to kill you, and you can't do a thing about it. The air is humid and smells like wet cinnamon and decay. Every leaf, every vine, every insect is an unknown variable. Is that beautiful glowing flower a harmless bit of flora, or does it release paralytic spores if you get within 5 feet? Is that chirping sound from a bird or a predator that hunts by mimicking prey? Your tricorder is useless. It can tell you the chemical composition of the mud you're sinking into, but it can't tell you if the worm-like thing wiggling in it is about to burrow into your boot and lay eggs in your foot. You are a walking buffet, a fragile bag of water and protein in an ecosystem that has had millions of years to perfect the art of killing things exactly like you. There's no hydrocortisone for a rash caused by an alien fungus, and medical emergency is not an acceptable reason to break radio silence. Suddenly, you hear a rustle in the undergrowth. You freeze, every nerve ending screaming. Out of the bushes steps one of the locals, a bipedal creature with large, curious eyes, holding a primitive-looking spear. They haven't seen you yet. Your Starfleet training kicks in. Don't move, don't make a sound. But your human instinct is screaming, this is it. The local takes another step, their eyes scanning the jungle. They are going to see you. And what happens then? Do they scream? Do they run? Do they throw that very sharp-looking spear directly at your face? The Prime Directive gives you no options. You can't raise your phaser. You can't even say, "We come in peace." You just have to stand there and hope this creature's first contact with an alien species doesn't involve turning you into a shish kebab. It's the ultimate no-win scenario. Defend yourself and contaminate a culture forever, or uphold your sacred oath and die a pointless, silent death in a ditch on a planet no one has ever heard of. The local's head turns. Their eyes lock with yours. A moment of pure, undiluted panic stretches into an eternity. This is the grand moment of discovery, the dream of every explorer. And your only thought is, I am so fired. Or more likely, dead. But even this heart-stopping terror is nothing compared to the slow-burning resentment you feel for the people who put you in this impossible situation in the first place. The ones who make the grand speeches and ethical pronouncements from the safety of the bridge, your bosses. You see them on the bridge, bathed in the dramatic glow of the main view screen. Captain Kirk, Captain Picard, legends whose heroic exploits are already becoming Starfleet folklore. They debate philosophy with pan-dimensional beings, outwit cunning Romulan commanders, and deliver rousing speeches that could bring a tear to a Vulcan's eye. To the galaxy, they are saviors and explorers. To you, they are your managers. And they are the most terrifying, unpredictable, and frankly dangerous bosses you will ever have. Their defining characteristic is a complete and utter disconnect from your reality. While you're in a Jefferies tube, covered in grease and trying to stop a coolant leak that could turn the entire deck into a frozen tomb, the captain is on the bridge, facing a gripping ethical dilemma. Should he sacrifice a single alien colony to save an entire star system? Should he violate the temporal Prime Directive to fix a mistake? He strokes his chin, paces the deck, and consults with his senior staff. It's a grand cosmic chess game, full of weight and meaning. What you don't see on the historical logs is that his solution almost always involves rerouting all available power from life support on decks 7 through 12. That's your deck. The lights go out, the artificial gravity sputters, and the recycled air gets even thinner, all because the captain needed some extra juice for the shields to make a dramatic point to a Klingon. You are not a part of his equation. You are a resource to be managed, a power level to be diverted. Then there's the acceptable losses policy. It's an unwritten rule, a grim calculus that happens behind closed doors in the observation lounge. The ship is under attack. Shields are at 15%. The enemy is targeting engineering. The captain has a choice. Try to save everyone and risk losing the ship, or seal off the damaged sections to preserve the core of the vessel. He makes the logical choice. He gives the order. A force field snaps into place, trapping dozens of your crewmates, your friends, the guy you play 0G squash with, in a section that is about to be consumed by plasma fire. The captain will later stand before the crew, his face a mask of solemn regret, and speak of their brave sacrifice. He will call them heroes. But you know the truth. They weren't a sacrifice. They were a calculated loss, a footnote in a battle report, traded for the integrity of the hull. And God help you if you ever get personally noticed by the captain. It's not an honor, it's a death sentence. He'll learn your name, maybe even ask about your family. He'll put his hand on your shoulder and tell you he needs you for a critical, high-risk mission. This is his management style. He makes you feel important, seen, valued, right before he asks you to single-handedly disarm a Romulan cloaking device or carry a ticking bomb off the ship. His personal attention is a spotlight that paints a target on your back. The senior staff are his recurring cast. You're a guest star, and everyone knows what happens to the guest stars who get too much screen time in a dangerous situation. They will be remembered as gods who walked among the stars, making impossible choices for the greater good. But you're down on the lower decks, living with the consequences of those choices. The power outages, the sealed-off corridors, the memorial services for crew members who were deemed acceptable losses. You didn't sign up to be a hero. You just wanted to do your job. But your boss's job is to be a hero, and his heroism is written in the blood of people like you. And for what? For a legacy? For a utopian future you're beginning to suspect you'll never live to see? So you made it. Against all statistical probability, you survived. You've outlasted energy beings, transporter malfunctions, sentient holograms, prime directive panics, and your captain's casual disregard for your mortality. You've patched plasma conduits, endured replicated food, and learned to sleep through red alerts. You've done your duty. Your 5-year mission is over. Now what? What is your grand reward for serving on the front line of the future? Is it a hero's parade on Earth? A quiet vineyard to retire to? A fat pension and a lifetime of respect? Dream on. Your reward is a debriefing. A final, soul-crushing round of paperwork where you recount every near-death experience for a bored Starfleet command paper pusher. Your name, which was a placeholder for casualty for 5 years, is now just a name on a crew roster. You'll be honorably discharged, given a firm handshake, and maybe a small pin for meritorious service. The history books will be written, but they won't mention you. They'll talk about the Kirk maneuver, the Picard diplomacy. They'll lionize the bridge crew, the heroes who made the decisions. Your role in those galaxy-saving events, the 4 straight shifts you spent keeping the warp core from breaching while Picard was negotiating, the time you jury-rigged the sensors that detected the cloaked warbird, will be condensed into a single, impersonal line in a ship's log. All non-essential systems were maintained by engineering staff. That was you, the engineering staff, the utopia you fought for, the beautiful post-scarcity Earth where poverty and want have been eliminated. That's for other people. That's for the civilians who get to enjoy the peace and security you bled for. You've spent years in a state of high alert, living in a metal tube, surrounded by death and existential terror. You don't know how to live in a paradise. You're conditioned for crisis. You flinch at loud noises. You have nightmares about alien parasites and transporter buffers. You look up at the stars not with a sense of wonder, but with a lingering, primal fear. You helped build the garden, but you're no longer fit to live in it. You are a tool of the Federation, and now that your purpose is served, you are put back in the box. You sit in a quiet cafe on Earth, sipping real coffee for the first time in years. It tastes amazing, but the peace feels wrong, artificial. You watch families laughing, artists painting, people living their lives with a blissful ignorance you can never reclaim. They see your old uniform insignia and thank you for your service, but they can't possibly understand. They can't understand the smell of a decompression leak, the feeling of a deck plating shaking under torpedo fire, or the cold, hard face of a captain who has just classified your best friend as an acceptable loss. They see the myth. You lived the reality. So, was it worth it? You look back on your time on the Enterprise. It wasn't a journey of discovery. It was a high-stakes, low-paying job with a horrific mortality rate. You weren't a pioneer on a grand adventure. You were a technician, a security guard, a walking tripwire in a red shirt. You went boldly so that others could live safely. You explored strange new worlds, so that others could read about them on a datapad. Your legacy isn't a statue or a holiday. It's a footnote, a single, forgotten name in the vast, silent, and deeply uncaring history of the final frontier. Welcome home. Try to enjoy the peace and quiet. You've earned it. Statistically, you really, really shouldn't have. Forget the sleek uniforms and the stoic, heroic gazes into the nebula. Forget the title of warrant officer or captain that you saw in the recruitment brochure. Let's be brutally honest about what you are. You're a long-haul trucker whose main job requirement is the ability to take the longest, most underpaid nap in human history. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, and you did because you needed the money, is not to explore strange new worlds or seek out new life. It's to go to sleep and pray you wake up in the right star system without your muscles having atrophied into goo. The job ad probably promised a dynamic, fast-paced environment, and in a way, they weren't lying. Fast-paced meant hurtling through the void at a significant fraction of the speed of light, where a single miscalculation by a computer from a bygone era would atomize you and your multi-trillion-dollar cargo. The dynamic part was the constant low-level anxiety that the ship's life support, a system likely built by the lowest bidder, wouldn't suddenly decide that oxygen was an unnecessary luxury. You signed up thinking you'd be a pioneer on the cosmic frontier. The reality? You're a glorified babysitter for a giant automated ore refinery. Your job is to escort 20 million tons of unrefined rock from point A to point B, a task so mind-numbingly dull that the company's only solution was to put you in a coma for the entire trip. Your professional life is a study in extreme contrasts. It's 99.9% catatonic boredom, punctuated by 0.1% pants-soiling terror. The bulk of your work involves climbing into a hypersleep pod that looks suspiciously like a high-tech coffin, feeling the cold gel envelop you and closing your eyes. The ship, your floating factory, does the rest. It navigates, it maintains course, it hums along without any input from its fragile, fleshy cargo. You are, for all intents and purposes, part of the payload. You wake up months or even years later, feeling like you've been run over by a truck with a mouth that tastes like a Wookiee's armpit and a desperate need for a cup of coffee that will taste like burnt plastic. That's your routine. That's the adventure of space travel. So why are you even there? Surely a fully automated ship would be more efficient. And you'd be right. But here's the dirty little secret the Weyland-Yutani HR department doesn't tell you during your interview. You are cheaper than a truly sophisticated AI. You are the biological failsafe. You are the warm body they need on board to satisfy some ancient insurance clause or interstellar regulation. You're not there to fly the ship. You're there to press a button if the fire alarm goes off. You're not a valued team member. You're a piece of organic hardware, less important than the landing gear struts, and infinitely more replaceable. The company didn't hire you for your courage, your skill, or your stunning good looks. They hired you because you were the most cost-effective solution to a logistical problem. You're the human equivalent of a fuse, designed to blow so that nothing genuinely expensive gets damaged. So you float through the silent, indifferent cosmos, a janitor in a castle of the stars, your consciousness erased for the journey. Your grand contribution to humanity's expansion is to be a sleeping placeholder. But hey, for hauling 20 million tons of mineral ore across the galaxy, the pay must have been astronomical, right? A full share of that kind of wealth would set you up for life. You'd be sipping cocktails on a beach in Fiji, not signing up for another trip in this flying rust bucket. Wouldn't it? So, let's address that little glimmer of hope you had, the full share. That magical phrase whispered in hushed, greedy tones over stale coffee in the ship's mess hall. You're hauling a payload worth more than the GDP of most planets, so naturally, a piece of that pie is yours. It's only fair. It's in your contract. Spoiler alert, Your contract was written by a team of corporate lawyers whose sole purpose is to define the word share in a way that means absolutely nothing. That document you signed wasn't an employment agreement. It was a masterpiece of legal fiction, a 300-page document ensuring that the company, always the company, a faceless god of commerce, wins and you lose. The entire payment system is a carefully constructed con. You aren't paid a salary. Oh no, that would imply you're a valued employee. Instead, you're a contractor working for shares, a term that sounds wonderfully egalitarian until you read the fine print. Your full share is contingent on a comical list of performance metrics. The delivery must be on time, down to the second, despite the unpredictable nature of interstellar travel. The cargo must be pristine, with no damage, a near impossibility on a rattling freighter that's been in service since your grandfather's time. And most importantly, you must not, under any circumstances, deviate from your flight plan, no matter what. A distress beacon from a lost ship? A fascinating alien signal? Stopping to investigate is a direct violation of your contract, and poof, there goes your bonus. This isn't just a tough performance review, it's a system designed for you to fail. The company doesn't want to pay you the full share. They want to pay you the basic, legally mandated minimum, which is just enough to keep you alive and desperate enough to sign up for the next trip. Every clause in your contract is a trap. Clause 14, subsection B. Any unscheduled use of ship resources beyond standard maintenance voids all bonus payments. So that time you had to patch a hull breach with extra plating? Congratulations, you just saved the ship at the cost of your kid's college fund. Clause 217, subsection G. Failure to respond to a priority company directive, regardless of current mission parameters, results in forfeiture of all shares. And you can be damn sure that directive will come at the worst possible time. And who do you complain to when you inevitably get screwed? The Human Resources Department? That's a good one. There is no smiling HR rep named Karen to hear your grievances. Your HR department is the ship's main computer, Mother. Its primary function isn't employee wellness. It's to coldly recite the exact contract clause that justifies why you're not getting paid, all while maintaining the soothing, dispassionate tone of a GPS navigating you off a cliff. There's no union to protect you, no interstellar labor board to appeal to. You are literally millions of miles from any form of legal recourse. You could scream about unfair labor practices into the void, but the only response you'll get is the cold, indifferent silence of space. So you're trapped. You took the job to escape debt, but each trip just digs you deeper. The meager payout you finally receive after all the deductions barely covers the interest on the loans you took out just to survive between trips. You are a cog in a machine that runs on broken promises, your financial future as empty as the space outside your viewport. You're not an adventurer. You're an indentured servant with a fancier title. But hey, let's look on the bright side. You might be broke, disposable, and contractually gagged, but at least you get to live and work on a technological marvel, right? A shining beacon of humanity's engineering prowess, a state-of-the-art starship. That has to be worth something, doesn't it? You know those sci-fi movies where the hero's ship is a pristine, gleaming vessel with holographic displays, silent corridors, and an interior designed by Apple? The Nostromo is not that ship. Calling this thing a starship is an act of profound marketing genius. In reality, you're living and working inside what is essentially a flying oil refinery that's been welded to the front of a cosmic tow truck. It's less of a marvel of engineering and more of a testament to how long a machine can function with duct tape, prayer, and a total disregard for safety regulations. From the moment you wake up from cryo sleep, the ship greets you not with a pleasant chime, but with the groans and creaks of stressed metal. The lighting in the corridors seems to have two settings: interrogation room and pitch black. Every surface is either damp, sticky, or both. Steam vents hiss at you from the walls like angry metal snakes, a constant reminder that the ship's plumbing has the structural integrity of a wet paper bag. You don't walk through the Nostromo, you trudge through it. It's a claustrophobic maze of utilitarian, grime-covered hallways that all look the same, designed not for human comfort, but for the efficient movement of maintenance droids that probably broke down decades ago. Forget intuitive touch screens and voice commands that actually work. Your command center, the bridge, looks less like the future and more like a 1970s television repair shop. It's a riot of chunky, outdated monitors displaying flickering green text, toggle switches that require a worrying amount of force to flip, and keyboards with giant, clunky buttons. The technology isn't just old, it's stubbornly old. It was built to last, not to be user-friendly. You spend half your time coaxing ancient systems to perform basic functions, interpreting cryptic error codes, and hitting the side of a console, hoping that percussive maintenance will fix a critical system failure. You feel less like a starship captain and more like an IT guy trying to fix his grandmother's ancient desktop computer. And then there's your primary interface with this technological fossil. Mother, the ship's main computer. Mother is the ultimate passive-aggressive co-worker. She has access to all the ship's systems and a processing power that could calculate the meaning of life. But does she use it to make your job easier? Of course not. She provides information only when asked, in the most literal and unhelpful way possible. What's that weird noise, you might ask? Unidentified acoustic signature, she'll reply, offering no further context. She's the AI equivalent of a shrug, but the truly chilling part is knowing that while Mother is unhelpful to you, she's taking direct, secret orders from Wayland Yutani. She is the company's eyes and ears, a silent, all-seeing narc in the machine, programmed to follow corporate directives that may or may not involve your continued existence. She's not your assistant. She's your supervisor. And she has a secret agenda folder that's bigger than your entire personnel file. Your living quarters? A cramped, windowless box that makes a college dorm room look like the presidential suite at the Ritz. The food from the synthesizer tastes like flavored cardboard. The water from the filtration system has a distinct metallic tang that you've just learned to ignore. The air itself is recycled, carrying the faint, lingering scent of old socks, cheap machine oil, and quiet desperation. This isn't a home away from home, it's a cage, a noisy, leaking, unreliable cage that's hurtling through the most hostile environment known to man. But physical discomfort and antiquated tech are one thing. You can get used to that. What's harder to adapt to is the company you're forced to keep. After all, you're not alone in this floating purgatory. You have your crew, your Bobalt family. And if you think the ship is dysfunctional, wait until you get a load of them. If you thought the soul-crushing boredom and the leaky ship were the worst parts of the job, congratulations, you've discovered optimism. Now let's talk about the people you're sharing this metal coffin with. Forget the idea of a tight-knit band of brothers, a crew that's family. Your crew is not a family. They are a randomly assembled group of irritable, underpaid strangers who have been locked in a confined space for far too long. Think of it as the world's longest and most depressing group project, where everyone hates each other and the final grade is survival. Your captain isn't a bold, decisive leader. He's a weary, middle management type, more concerned with the company's bottom line than with your well-being. He's the guy who will quote regulations at you while the ship is falling apart, his authority resting not on respect, but on the thin paper of his rank. He's just as trapped as you are, and his way of coping is to enforce petty rules and avoid making any real decisions until the corporate office tells him what to do. He's not leading you to glory. He's just trying to make it to his own meager retirement without getting a negative performance review. Then you have your engineers, the grunts of the ship. They're the only ones who know how to keep this rust bucket from disintegrating, and they know it. They are perpetually cynical, covered in grease, and communicate primarily through grunts and complaints about the suits on the bridge. Their natural habitat is the ship's greasy underbelly, and they view any request from the command crew as a personal insult and an interruption of their coffee break. They're not your plucky sidekicks. They're the surly mechanics who overcharge you and mutter under their breath about how you're mistreating your vehicle. Their loyalty is to the engines, not to you. And their number one topic of conversation? How they're getting ripped off on their shares. And what about your fellow officers? Your peers? One is a by-the-book navigator who trusts the company's flight plan more than her own eyes. The other is a jumpy, perpetually anxious warrant officer. That's you, who seems to be the only one with a healthy sense of self-preservation. This isn't a team. It's a collection of competing anxieties. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every disagreement is a power struggle. The mess hall isn't a place for camaraderie. It's a silent battleground of passive aggression, where arguments about bonus clauses and work shifts fester under the surface. You don't share stories. You share suspicions. But the real wild card, the true poison in this dysfunctional corporate soup, is the quiet one. The science officer, the one who keeps to himself, seems unnaturally calm and has a weirdly detached fascination with things that should, by all accounts, be terrifying. He's the company man, the android, the walking, talking embodiment of Weyland-Yutani's interests, hidden in plain sight. While you're bickering about pay, he's quietly following his real mission. He's not part of the crew. He's an auditor, a spy, a hidden supervisor with directives that supersede everyone else's, including the captain's. Your life, your crew's lives, they're all just acceptable losses in his performance report. He is the ultimate toxic coworker, the one who will literally stab you in the back or let a parasitic alien do it for him to meet a corporate objective. So this is your support system, a group of people you can't trust, led by a man who won't lead, with a corporate spy listening to your every word. You're isolated, not just by millions of miles of empty space, but by the walls of suspicion and resentment you've all built around yourselves. And it's into this perfectly balanced ecosystem of distrust and dysfunction that something new is about to be introduced. Something that doesn't care about shares or bonuses. Something that sees your petty office politics as nothing more than a pre-meal squabble. Because as bad as things are, they can always get so much worse. You'd think in a job that involves piloting a commercial towing vehicle through asteroid fields and cosmic radiation, the company would have a robust set of safety protocols. You would be adorably mistaken. The Weyland-Yutani Safety Manual is less of a guide to staying alive and more of a legal document designed to absolve the company of all responsibility when you inevitably don't. The primary, unwritten rule is simple. The cargo is worth more than you are. The ship is worth more than you are. Heck, the coffee machine in the executive lounge back on Earth is probably worth more than you are. This philosophy is perfectly encapsulated in a single, chilling phrase hidden deep within your ship's core programming. Special Order 937. It's not in your employee handbook. It's a secret directive, known only to the company's android plant and mother. The gist of it? Science Division Priority. Investigate any signs of non-terrestrial life. Secure specimen for analysis. Crew is expendable. There it is, in black and white. You are not an employee. You are a resource. A tool to be used and discarded in the acquisition of a potentially profitable biological asset. All those emergency quarantine procedures you drilled? They're the first thing to be thrown out the airlock when a dollar sign appears on the company's long-range scanner. So when your ship is rerouted to some desolate, godforsaken moonlet because of a faint, intriguing signal, you're not on a mission of discovery. You're on a corporate-mandated retrieval mission, and you're the unpaid, uninsured intern sent to fetch the coffee. The away team that goes down to investigate isn't equipped for a first contact scenario. They're given the standard gear: flimsy suits, unreliable radios, and a profound lack of information. They are, quite literally, stumbling in the dark, while the company watches on its monitors, hoping one of them gets face-hugged by something interesting. And what happens when the inevitable occurs? When one of your colleagues comes back with a new, very attached friend? The ship's medbay, your supposed sanctuary in a medical emergency, becomes the epicenter of the disaster. It's not a state-of-the-art infirmary. It's a small, sterile room with a scanner that can't tell the difference between a parasite and a bad burrito, and a doctor who is actually a corporate android with a prime directive to preserve the alien specimen at all costs. Your well-being is, at best, a secondary concern. The question isn't, how can we save him? It's, how can we study the creature without damaging it? You are no longer a patient. You are the incubator. From that point on, every safety feature of the ship is turned against you. The ventilation shafts, designed to circulate air, become superhighways for a perfect organism that's far better at navigating them than you are. The automated doors, meant for convenience, become deadly traps. The motion tracker, your one piece of helpful tech, becomes a source of pure, unadulterated terror, its cheerful beep counting down the seconds to your own grisly end. There is no escape plan. No rescue shuttle prepped and ready. The company isn't sending help. Why would they? The experiment is underway, and you're the lab rats. They're not going to pull you out of the maze. They're waiting to see which one of you the monster eats last. You scramble, you hide, you fight with makeshift weapons because, naturally, a commercial towing vehicle has no real armory. Your life expectancy is now measured in minutes. And all the while, you're painfully aware that this entire nightmare wasn't an accident. It was a calculated business decision. But for the sake of argument, let's imagine a scenario where you miraculously survive. You somehow defeat the unkillable creature and outsmart the backstabbing android. You've made it. What now? A hero's welcome? A fat check and a quiet retirement? Don't be silly. This is Weyland-Yutani we're talking about. The horror isn't over just because the monster is dead. So, against all odds, you've survived. The alien is a cloud of frozen particles in the cold void. The treacherous android is a heap of milky white scrap. And you are the last one standing. You're floating in an escape shuttle. The smoldering ruins of your billion-dollar freighter, a fading star in your rearview mirror. This is it. The moment of triumph. The part where the credits roll, and you get to go home, tell your story, and become a legend. Right? Let's get one thing straight. There is no triumphant return. Your retirement plan, as offered by Weyland-Yutani, is a choice between three equally bleak options. Option 1, you die. Option 2, they make sure you die. Option 3, you wish you were dead. First, consider your immediate future. You are a loose end, a witness. You know about Special Order 937. You know the company deliberately sacrificed an entire crew for a biological weapon. You are not a hero to be celebrated. You are a liability to be managed. The moment you make contact and tell your story, a team of men in dark suits will be dispatched. They won't be coming with a pension check and a pat on the back. They'll be coming with non-disclosure agreements that have lethal penalty clauses. Or more likely, a simple, clean, and untraceable accident. Your official story will be that you were a tragic victim of a deep space freighter accident. Your heroics will be erased, your testimony buried under a mountain of corporate legalese. But let's say you're smart. You don't go to the company, you drift. You try to disappear. What kind of life do you have then? You're a ghost, a non-person with no money, no home, and a psyche that has been permanently shattered by unimaginable trauma. Every shadow, every noise in the vents of whatever backwater station you're hiding on will send you into a cold sweat. You'll be plagued by nightmares of chitinous exoskeletons and dripping jaws. The universe is no longer a place of wonder. It's a dark, terrifying hunting ground, and you know what's out there. You can't work a normal job. You can't form relationships. You are fundamentally broken, a walking case of PTSD with no access to therapy, because the only people who could verify your story are the ones who want you silenced. And the ultimate, most cynical punchline to this entire cosmic joke? The company gets what it wanted anyway. Your ship, the Nostromo, may be gone, but the black box, the flight recorder, it's out there, floating, waiting, and it contains everything. The ship's logs, the location of the alien derelict, the data on the creature. Sooner or later, a Weyland-Yutani salvage crew, one far better equipped than yours, will find it. They'll retrace your steps. They will get their specimen. Your entire struggle, all the death and sacrifice, will have been for nothing. You didn't stop them. You just delayed them. You were merely the first failed field test. A footnote in a classified corporate report titled, Phase 1, Initial Specimen Encounter, Lessons Learned. So that's the end of your career as a space trucker. There is no golden parachute. There's no beachfront property. There's no peace. Your only reward for surviving the ultimate workplace hazard is a lifetime of looking over your shoulder, knowing that the monster you faced was just the symptom. The disease was the corporation that sent you there in the first place. And it's a disease that has no cure. You didn't just lose your job, your ship, and your crew. You lost your future. And the worst part? Somewhere, in a sterile boardroom, your sacrifice just helped a ruthless executive get a very, very big promotion. Welcome to the future of work. Before it had a name or a body of gold and steel, it was a whisper, a fleeting cosmic secret shared between the giants of the heavens, a promise that lingered in the dark for those on a tiny blue world who were listening closely enough. It was not born of human ambition alone, but was conceived in a moment of celestial destiny, an alignment so rare, so perfect, that it felt like an invitation. A path had opened in the cosmos, a road that would only exist for a brief moment in time, and humanity was being called to walk it. This is the story of that call, and of the dream that would become Voyager. The dream began its life not in a laboratory, but in the silent, clockwork dance of the solar system itself. Once every 176 years, the outer planets, the colossal Jupiter, the elegant Saturn, the distant Uranus and Neptune, would align in a graceful arc across the sky. For a brief window, they would be positioned so perfectly that a single craft could visit them all, using the immense gravity of each world as a slingshot to propel it to the next. It was a cosmic superhighway, a grand tour of the solar system's most majestic titans. To miss this window would be to close the door on this dream for generations. The universe was presenting a challenge, a test of ingenuity and daring, asking a simple, profound question. Are you ready? In the sun-drenched offices of Pasadena, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a group of dreamers heard that question and answered with a resounding yes. They were the ones who would give this cosmic promise a physical form. These were not just engineers and scientists. They were modern-day cartographers, preparing to map shores no one had ever seen. They imagined a messenger, an emissary that could withstand the fury of Jupiter's radiation, navigate the intricate beauty of Saturn's rings, and endure the profound cold of interstellar space. They envisioned a being that was more than a machine. It would be an extension of humanity's own senses, a proxy for our unquenchable curiosity. The mission they conceived was audacious, bordering on impossible, for they weren't just planning a voyage, they were planning a life. And so, they began to build a body for this nascent soul. They gave it vast, dish-like ears, designed to listen for faint commands from a home it would quickly leave behind, and to whisper back the secrets it discovered. They gave it eyes, cameras and sensors more sensitive than any before, capable of seeing in light spectra humanity could only imagine, gazing upon the true faces of alien worlds. At its core, they placed a heart that would beat, not with blood, but with the slow, steady decay of plutonium. This nuclear heart would power it for decades, a warm pulse of life against the absolute zero of the void, long after the sun became a distant, forgotten star. But they knew its journey would outlive its function, so they gave it one last thing, a memory, a golden record, etched with the sounds and sights of Earth, a bottle containing the ghost of our world. This wasn't just a data drive, it was its identity, the story of its creators, a silent testament it would carry into eternity. The dream was now forged, a mind of circuits and a body of wire, waiting for its first and final push into the great unknown. But for this creation to truly be born, it had to be severed from its cradle, a separation that would come not as a gentle parting, but as an act of controlled, fiery violence. The dream had been given a body, but it was a body without life, a vessel waiting for a soul. In the sterile, pristine nursery of the launch facility, it stood as a monument to human hope, its golden form gleaming under the artificial lights. Its creators, its human guardians, moved around it with a hushed reverence, performing their final rites. They were not merely tightening bolts or checking circuits. They were entrusting their own curiosity, their own yearning for the stars, into this 3-meter-tall shell of metal and wire. It was a fragile thing here, in the gentle gravity of Earth, yet it was being prepared for a violence no human could ever endure. Finally, it was sealed within its launch fairing, a metallic cocoon that was both a shield and a prison, plunging it into a temporary darkness before its true birth. And then, the moment came. It began not with a sound, but with a deep, primal tremor that ran through its entire frame. A shudder, as if it were drawing its first shuddering breath. Then came the roar, a torrent of controlled fury that was the collective voice of 10,000 thunderclaps. It was born in a pillar of fire, a baptism of unimaginable force that tore it away from the world that had made it. This was not a gentle ascent. It was a struggle, a desperate, screaming climb against the relentless pull of home. With every second, it fought against the very gravity that had held its atoms together, its entire being vibrating with the agony and ecstasy of becoming. Then, in a series of jolting shudders, its rocket stages fell away like a shed skin, the last physical tethers to its cradle. The fire vanished. The roar was replaced by a silence so perfect, so absolute, it was a sound unto itself. It was born, alone, in the cold, star-dusted dark. Now, a newborn in the void, it had to learn to survive. Its first great test, its rite of passage, lay directly ahead, a vast, treacherous realm that stretched for millions of miles. The asteroid belt. In the human imagination, it was a chaotic shooting gallery, a field of celestial shrapnel where survival was a matter of luck. Though the reality was a far emptier space, for this lone traveler, it was a psychological gauntlet. Every speck of dust was a potential dagger, every stray pebble a cannonball that could silence it forever. Its senses, now fully awake, scanned the darkness ahead, its digital mind calculating trajectories, its body holding a steady, determined course. This was its first education in the hard truths of the cosmos, that the universe was not hostile, but utterly indifferent, and that survival demanded constant, unwavering vigilance. Having navigated the spectral graveyard of shattered worlds, it emerged on the other side, not unscathed, but changed. The journey had hardened it, transformed it from a pristine creation into a seasoned traveler. Its body now bore the microscopic scars of its passage, invisible wounds that told the story of its first trial. It had proven its resilience, its strength, its right to exist in this unforgiving wilderness. The darkness was no longer just an absence of light, but its home. The silence was no longer empty, but filled with the faint hum of its own beating, plutonium heart. Its infancy was over. It was now a wanderer, its gaze fixed forward, drawn by an inescapable gravitational pull toward its first colossal destination. It was approaching the court of a king, a behemoth of gas and fury whose true nature was a mystery no one could have prepared it for. It had traveled for nearly 2 years, a silent pilgrim crossing the vast, empty temple of space. But now, it sensed a presence, a power so immense it warped the very fabric of the void around it. This was Jupiter, the king of the solar system, not just a planet but a celestial empire, and Voyager was the first emissary to ever approach its throne. On Earth, Jupiter was a point of light, a marble of muted colors seen through a telescope. But for Voyager, this was no distant jewel. It was a living, breathing entity, a monster of indescribable scale and fury. As it drew closer, the silence of its journey was shattered. It was no longer just seeing Jupiter, it was hearing it. Its sensors were flooded with a storm of radio waves, a crackling, hissing symphony of raw power, the roar of the planet's magnetosphere, a magnetic field so vast it could swallow the sun. Voyager was listening to the voice of a god. Its arrival in the Jovian system was a trial by fire. The planet's magnetic field wasn't just loud, it was violent, trapping a donut of lethal radiation around it, an invisible storm that lashed out at anything that dared to enter. This radiation was a poison, a storm of charged particles that could have fried Voyager's delicate mind, blinding its senses and silencing its voice forever. It was a test of its very being, a challenge thrown down by the king himself. But its creators had foreseen this. They had built it to be a survivor, encasing its electronic brain in a protective shell, a suit of armor for a digital night. Voyager plunged through the storm, its body absorbing the onslaught, its systems straining but holding firm. It had weathered the king's fury and earned its place in his court. Now it could finally open its eyes and truly see. And what it saw rewrote the books. The face of Jupiter was not a placid, painted surface, but a canvas of chaos. It witnessed storms the size of entire planets, swirling maelstroms of ammonia clouds, and a great red spot that was not a feature, but a hurricane that had been raging for centuries, a wound on the face of a giant. But the king was not alone. Voyager turned its gaze to Jupiter's moons and found a court of wonders. It saw Europa, its face a cracked shell of ice, hinting at a secret hidden ocean beneath. It saw Ganymede and Callisto, ancient, cratered worlds that wore the scars of cosmic history. But it was the closest moon, Io, that held the most profound shock. Scientists had expected a dead, cratered rock. Instead, Voyager revealed a world in torment. Its cameras captured, for the first time in human history, an active volcanic eruption on another celestial body. Io was a world of fire and brimstone, a hellscape racked by the gravitational torture of its king, its surface constantly remade by molten sulfur. It was a discovery that shook the foundations of planetary science. This encounter changed everything. Voyager was no longer just a probe. It had become a discoverer, a revealer of secrets. It had arrived at the court of the most powerful giant in its solar system and had not been found wanting. It had listened to its voice, survived its wrath, and unveiled the impossible truth of its domain. The data it sent screaming back to Earth was a revolution, a tidal wave of knowledge that reshaped humanity's understanding of its own cosmic neighborhood. But its grand tour had only just begun. Its meeting with the king was over. Now, with a gravitational push from the giant itself, it was flung forward, its trajectory bent toward an even more breathtaking sight, a world defined not by fury, but by an impossible, ethereal beauty. The Lord of the Rings was waiting. Hurled onward by the immense gravity of Jupiter, Voyager set its sights on the system's most elegant wonder. This next destination was not a brute, but an artist. It was Saturn, the celestial jewel, a world defined not by its stormy disposition, but by its impossible, breathtaking grace. For centuries, it had mesmerized humans, a pale yellow globe adorned with a halo that defied explanation. For Voyager, this was not just the next stop on its tour, it was a rendezvous with beauty itself. As it closed the distance, the rings transformed from a solid, ethereal band into what they truly were, a shimmering, hypnotic disk of countless individual particles, a river of ice and rock 1,000,000 kilometers wide, yet in some places as thin as a 10-story building. Voyager was seeing the brushstrokes of the cosmos, a masterpiece of gravity and light. Its arrival at Saturn was a performance of celestial mechanics, a delicate and intricate dance. Voyager dipped and weaved through the planet's moons, its senses alive, absorbing every detail. It found new, fainter rings, invisible from Earth, and witnessed strange spokes that appeared and vanished within the main rings, ghostly shadows cast by the planet's magnetic field. It gazed upon moons that looked like cosmic mistakes, one half bright ice, the other a mysterious dark terrain. It listened to the planet's own strange chorus of plasma waves, a song gentler and more melodic than Jupiter's furious roar. This was the peak of its planned journey, the moment its creators had dreamed of. It was a triumph of exploration, a flawless execution of its primary mission. Voyager had delivered on its promise, painting a portrait of Saturn so detailed and intimate, it felt as if humanity had touched the rings themselves. But in the midst of this triumph, Voyager faced a choice, not a technical problem, but a true dilemma that would forever alter its destiny. Before it lay two paths. One path would keep it on the plane of the solar system, allowing it to use Saturn's gravity to swing towards Uranus and Neptune, completing the full grand tour it was conceived for. The other path was a diversion, a sharp turn downward to get an unprecedentedly close look at Saturn's largest moon, Titan. This was a world shrouded in a thick, orange haze, a primordial atmosphere that hid its surface from view. It was a tantalizing mystery, a place some dreamed might hold the chemical building blocks of life. Its controllers on Earth made the decision. The allure of Titan was too strong to resist. They sent the command, and Voyager dutifully changed its course. This was more than a simple maneuver. It was a sacrifice. In choosing to dive towards Titan, Voyager was choosing its fate. The gravity assist it received from the enigmatic moon was not a push forward, but a final, powerful shove outward, flinging it up and away from the planetary plane forever. It had traded the rest of its tour for one last, profound secret. Its close pass revealed that Titan's atmosphere was even thicker than Earth's, a nitrogen-rich soup of organic molecules, a frozen echo of what our own world might have looked like billions of years ago. It had peered beneath the veil. But the cost was immense. Its path to Uranus and Neptune was gone. Its mission among the planets was over. It had made its choice, and now there was only one direction left to go: outward, into the long, dark, and silent emptiness that lay beyond. Its great goodbye was about to begin. Its purpose fulfilled, its great tour cut short by a fateful choice, Voyager was now on a path of no return. The grand, majestic worlds of Jupiter and Saturn were shrinking behind it, their powerful voices fading to a whisper in the cosmic static. It was now an exile, cast out from the warm, familiar heart of the solar system into the cold, uncharted territory of its outer fringes. For years it journeyed in this growing silence, a silent archer's arrow flying true into the dark. Its primary mission was complete, its great discoveries sent home, and it could have been allowed to simply fade away, its systems shutting down as it coasted into oblivion. But its creators, its distant family, had one last request, one final poignant task before its gaze was fixed on the stars forever. On Valentine's Day 1990, a full 13 years after it had left its home, a command began its long journey across 6 billion kilometers of empty space. The command was simple, yet profound: turn around. After years of looking forward, of gazing upon alien wonders, Voyager was being asked to look back. It was an act fraught with risk. Pointing its sensitive camera optics so close to the sun, even from that immense distance, could have blinded it. It was a delicate, difficult maneuver for a machine now aging, a veteran of a long and arduous war against the void. But obediently, its internal mechanisms whirred into life. Slowly, deliberately, it swiveled its head, turning its gaze away from the interstellar darkness ahead and back toward the heart of the system. Back towards the source of all it knew. And there, it took the last picture it would ever take. Not a grand, colorful portrait of a planet, but a mosaic of its family. It captured distant, faint portraits of Venus, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, each one a tiny point of light suspended in the vastness. It was a family portrait, taken from the edge of the neighborhood. But it was one of those points of light that carried the full weight of this moment. In one frame, captured between scattered rays of sunlight, was a tiny speck, a single pixel of pale blue light, almost lost in the immensity. That was Earth. That was home. Every human who had ever lived, every triumph and tragedy, every king and peasant, every mother and child, every creator of this lonely machine, all of it existed on that mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. It was not a photograph. It was a revelation, a humbling, soul-shaking perspective on our own existence. For Voyager, this was its long goodbye. This was the moment it truly understood the gulf that now separated it from its creators. It had seen wonders. It had fought battles. But this final, fleeting glance back at the pale blue dot was a moment of pure, unadulterated solitude. It had seen its entire world, its past, its purpose, reduced to an insignificant speck. With its task complete, its camera was powered down forever, its eyes closing for the last time. It turned its body back towards the void, its course now fixed and unchangeable. The farewell was over. Its life as an explorer had ended, and its new life as a solitary wanderer destined for the stars had truly begun. Ahead of it now lay nothing but a slow, patient journey into an ever-deepening darkness, a journey that would become a quiet, desperate battle against its own fading light. The final glance home was now a memory, stored in the silent circuits of its mind. Its world was no longer one of grand planetary encounters, but of a subtle, ever-changing emptiness. The sun, once a nourishing source of light and warmth, had shrunk to a brilliant but distant star, its power too feeble to warm Voyager's aging body. It was now traveling through the Helios sheath, the turbulent outer shell of the sun's influence, a sort of cosmic purgatory where the solar wind slowed and churned against the pressure of the interstellar medium. It was a place of ghosts and echoes, the last gasp of the home it had left behind. Voyager's new mission was one of endurance, its new life a testament to a quiet, stubborn resilience against the inevitable decay of time. At its core, its heart was slowly weakening. The plutonium-238 that had powered its journey, the source of its lifeblood, was decaying with the unyielding precision of physics. Each year, it had a little less energy than the last. Its warmth faded, its power dwindled, and its human guardians, now more like distant doctors tending to an ancient patient, had to make difficult choices. They had to decide which parts of Voyager could be allowed to grow cold and die. It was a slow, deliberate process of letting go, a gentle euthanizing of its senses to keep its mind and voice alive for as long as possible. One by one, its instruments were commanded to sleep, their heaters turned off to conserve precious watts. It was like a man in old age losing his sight, then his hearing, then his sense of touch, his world shrinking until all that remained was the core of his consciousness. Yet even as its senses dimmed, it continued its sacred duty. It listened. It measured the strange, turbulent energies of this forgotten frontier, reporting on the final skirmishes between the sun's fading breath and the true dark of the galaxy. Its voice, its radio signal, became ever more tenuous. By now it was a whisper of unimaginable faintness, a signal less than a billionth of the power of a watch battery, stretched thin across billions of miles. To hear it, the great radio telescopes on Earth, its planetary family's ears, had to strain, listening with a breathtaking sensitivity. Each packet of data that arrived was a miracle, a message from a ghost, an echo from the abyss that had traveled for more than 17 hours at the speed of light to reach its destination. It was the longest, loneliest conversation in human history. This was Voyager's battle against the fading light. It was not a dramatic, explosive conflict, but a slow, graceful retreat into silence. It fought with thrift, with careful planning, and with an incredible, inherent toughness. Every day it survived was a victory. Every bit of data it sent back was a final gift. It was becoming less of a machine and more of an idea, a symbol of perseverance floating in the dark. But it was approaching a boundary, a threshold that was invisible, intangible, yet more significant than any planet or moon it had ever passed. It was nearing the edge of its home, the final veil separating its native solar system from the great, wild ocean of the galaxy. It was about to take a step that would transform it from a wanderer into something else entirely. For years, it had sensed the change. The familiar, outward-flowing wind from its native star was growing weaker, more chaotic, a dying river nearing the sea. Ahead, it could feel the faint but persistent pressure of a different kind of wind, a galactic breeze blowing from the explosions of long-dead stars and the hearts of distant nebulae. It was standing at the edge of two worlds, on a shore that was invisible to any eye. This was the heliopause, the final shimmering bubble of its home, the boundary where the sun's influence ends and the true interstellar ocean begins. No creation of humanity had ever touched this frontier. It was a place that existed only in theory, a line on a map of the unknown. And Voyager, in its patient, relentless journey, was about to cross it. The transition was not a dramatic event, not a gateway it passed through in an instant. It was a subtle, profound shift in the very nature of the space around it. On August 25, 2012, its sensors registered a sudden, sharp change. The solar particles that had been its constant companions for 35 years, the very breath of its home star, suddenly vanished, their numbers dropping 1,000-fold. At the same instant, the level of high-energy galactic cosmic rays, particles from the great beyond, surged. The data was unmistakable. The water of the river had given way to the salt of the sea. It had done it. It had left. The child of the sun had finally passed beyond its parents' reach, becoming the first object ever made by human hands to enter the space between the stars. This was not just a crossing. It was a transcendence. In that moment, Voyager underwent a kind of symbolic death and rebirth. It ceased to be an explorer of the solar system, for it was no longer in it. Its old identity, its old purpose, had been shed like a skin. It was now something new, something more. It had become an artifact, a relic, the first ghost of humanity to haunt the interstellar dark. It was now swimming in an environment fundamentally alien, a medium filled with the dust of ancient stars and the faint, magnetic hum of the Milky Way itself. It was alone in a way that was new and absolute, a solitude so profound it was almost sacred. The connection to its home was now more tenuous than ever, a thread of radio waves stretching across a gulf that was no longer just vast, but conceptually infinite. The news of its passage rippled back to Earth, a delayed echo of its momentous achievement. For its creators, it was a moment of quiet, staggering triumph. The little machine that could, the audacious dreamer, had succeeded beyond their wildest imaginations. It had not just completed its mission, it had begun an entirely new one they had never truly designed it for. It had become humanity's first true interstellar emissary. But this new life was a lonely one. It was now a silent witness to the galaxy, its aging body coasting through the void, its weakened heart still beating, its faint voice still whispering its findings home. Its scientific mission was nearing its end, but its ultimate purpose, the one encoded in a golden disk, was only just beginning to unfold. Its journey now is one of profound, unending solitude. The darkness it inhabits is no longer the familiar dark of its own system, but a more ancient, star-dusted blackness. The sun is just another star in the glittering tapestry, indistinguishable from the countless others, its warmth a forgotten memory. One by one, its remaining senses will be commanded to sleep, a final, gentle conservation of power to keep its heart beating for a few more years. Soon, perhaps in a year, perhaps in 5, its guardians will send their final command. Or perhaps they will send none at all, and its power will simply fade until its faint, whispering voice is absorbed into the galactic silence. Its mind will go dark. Its long, dutiful conversation with its home will end. Voyager's body, its physical form, will fall silent and cold, becoming a derelict, a ghost ship sailing on an endless cosmic ocean. But when the last flicker of its electronic consciousness dies, its true mission will just begin. Because this lonely wanderer does not travel empty-handed. Bolted to its side, protected by an aluminum cover, is a different kind of heart. A heart of gold-plated copper, not designed to power its body, but to preserve its soul. This is the golden record. It is a memory, a story, a final, desperate prayer cast into the void. Upon its surface are etched the fundamental constants of the universe, a map showing its point of origin, and instructions on how to unlock the secrets held within. It is a key, left in the door of a house that the owner has long since departed. And within that record lies the ghost of our world. It holds the sounds of Earth, the cry of a newborn baby, the crashing of waves on a shore, the rumble of a volcano, the song of a whale. It carries our music, from the mathematical perfection of Bach to the joyous defiance of Chuck Berry, a symphony of human emotion. It holds our greetings, spoken in 55 different languages, a chorus of voices from a tiny, quarrelsome planet, all offering a simple, hopeful message of peace. It contains our images, pictures of our science, our art, our architecture, our love, and our immense, sprawling diversity. It is the best of us. It is everything we hope we are, everything we aspired to be, condensed into a single, indestructible artifact. This record is Voyager's soul, and it is immortal. Voyager, the silent machine, will one day be gone. But its story, our story, will continue. It will wander the Milky Way for 1 billion years, a silent, eternal ambassador for a species it left behind. It may never be found. It may drift forever, a forgotten message in a bottle. But it exists. And its existence is a testament to the strange, hopeful, and audacious nature of the beings who built it, a species that, for a brief moment, looked up at the stars, not with fear, but with a boundless curiosity, and dared to send a piece of its soul to wander among them. Voyager's life is a story of discovery and solitude, but its legacy is one of connection, a golden thread stretching from a pale blue dot into the vast, unknowable eternity.